and then took over Big 12.
Been there since 08, so it's kind of like, I guess, 6 years, something like that. Yeah.
Bryan Houston with Rattler & Hum Sports, and talking to the voice of the Big 12 now after many, many years, a quarter of a century, I guess, at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Wendall Barnhouse now with Big12.com. How's that working out?
It's been pretty good. It's interesting. I've sort of reinvented my career, so to speak, going from being a newspaper guy to doing a lot more online stuff yesterday and today, trying to host the media days coverage here as we go from coaches' press conferences and player interviews. And so it's a little bit different. Kind of had to reinvent myself, but it's not brain surgery, so I'm able to handle it okay.
Have you learned how to blush and work the makeup thing?
No comment. Although I need a lot of work.
I don't believe that at all. When you cover Big 12 Media Days, this year, after watching the Southeastern Conference Media Days last week, when it looked like it was one rock star after another, and this lacked a little bit of star power this year. Would you agree?
Yeah, it is. In the SEC, and when I was with the Star-Telegram, I covered the SEC Media Days quite a bit, and it's a circus. I mean, there's just every conference is a little bit different. Every conference does their media day a little bit different. There's the Southeastern Conference, their fan base is very crazy, basically, I think. I mean, it's 365 down there every day of the year. This Big 12 Media Day, yes, there is a little difference compared to last year because you don't have a Geno Smith, you don't have a Landry Jones, you don't have guys that, were possible Heisman candidates, that sort of thing. And it's kind of a cyclical thing, and it kind of reflects what the league is in right now as far as a lot of quarterback situations up in the air, which is the main reason why there's probably not going to be a Big 12 team in the top 10 as far as preseason polls when the AP and the coaches poll come out in a few weeks, and that's never happened, that there's never been a Big 12 team in the top 10. But it's a cyclical deal. I mean, I think at some point in time the SEC is not going to win a national championship. I mean, they've won 7 in a row, and in sports things change. But here at Media Day, it's a little different, but I think it's kind of nice to let some players that maybe don't get as much publicity as usual get a chance to get in front of the media, and we've got a lot of nice reviews about how the room's set up. It's a little bit like a Super Bowl, and I think the players are kind of pumped up just to be here and kind of be in this atmosphere.
What do you see as being the major storylines in the conference this year?
Well, the parity, the fact that there were 6 teams that got a first-place vote in the preseason poll. The teams that aren't at the top are expected to be at the top. I mean, Oklahoma is picked second and Texas is picked fourth. The last 2 years we've had Oklahoma State and Kansas State win the regular season title. So it's not like just Oklahoma and Texas anymore. So that's a little bit of a change, and we'll see if that continues. I mean, you got TCU picked for third, getting more first-place votes than Oklahoma or Texas. So in Oklahoma State, is starting to get a lot of respect as a program because they're picked to win it. I mean, they won it 2 years ago, but, they've never been picked to win it. So I think that shows that people say, hey, you know what, that's a pretty solid program. It's worth considering them as being the favorites going into the season. So, and Kansas State, the media never gets it right. They were picked 6th last year and won it. They're picked 6th again this year. And I think Baylor's a dark horse team. I mean, Baylor maybe has the best both sides of the ball. We're not sure about their quarterback, but they have a history of having a quarterback that works no matter what. And so I think Baylor's a team that kind of may surprise some people. So I think it's just going to be a race that you're not saying, hey, we got to knock this team off. There's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be in it.
There is obviously a great deal of balance, but do you see a team in the conference that could emerge as a great team this year?
Oklahoma and Texas both, because of their pedigree and their history, and Texas has 19 starters returning. It's very interesting. Phil Steele, who does a preseason magazine that everybody thinks is kind of the Bible, he's got Texas 4th in the nation, and they're 4th in the Big 12 as far as the media is concerned. I think that shows that the media in this area are saying, Texas, you got to prove it to us again, even though you've got all these starters coming back. If David Ash has, after 2 years of being, kind of a semi-starter and then coming in to being the starter at the end of the year, a lot of quarterbacks their junior year, the light kind of comes on, they get it. If he is the kind of quarterback that they think he is and can play well and give them solid play at quarterback, and if they get their defense fixed, yeah, they're a team that could kind of surprise some people because, A, it's Texas, B, they've got a lot of talent. Oklahoma, on the other hand, They've got to find, is Bell, the quarterback, Blake Bell, is he going to be able to get it done as a starter? And they've got to get some issues on defense figured out. But they're Oklahoma, and they're tired of finishing 10-3. A lot of teams would be real happy with that. They want to win conference championship minimum, national championship, or at least be in the hunt. So I could see either one of those two teams kind of emerging.
Talked to a number of people who feel like for MAC and Texas, it's almost you have to beat Oklahoma and win the conference, or it's time for a change. What do you think?
Well, I think there will be a lot of heat if they don't do either one of those. They could lose to Oklahoma and still, end up just losing to Oklahoma. Oklahoma could get knocked off by a couple people and they could end up winning the conference. That's the one thing about this round-robin schedule. You just really don't know what's going to happen. The last 2 years, Oklahoma State lost at Iowa State. Kansas State lost at Baylor, knocked them out of the national championship picture. Those, and Iowa State and Baylor were not at the time, top teams. So you don't know what's going to. There's a chance for an upset, late in the season, for anybody. So Texas, if they can do both, if they can beat Oklahoma and win the conference, I think they'll probably be in the running maybe for a national championship. Obviously this year it's different because there's only going to be 2 getting a shot at it as opposed to starting next year with 4. But yeah, I think it's time for people at Texas to say, okay, we came close in 2009. Went down, that makes sense, but we need to be back up.
I covered the Southeastern Conference back prior to the Nick Saban years, and I remember going to SEC Media Days when the only rock star coach was Spurrier. You're seeing a lot, an elevation of the level of coaching in the Big 12 right now. Would you agree with that? Do you see some guys, do you see some rock stars here developing some possibilities?
Yeah, well, Cliff Kingsbury, I noticed some ladies wandering in yesterday during his press conference to get a view of him. I don't know if they were from the Mary Kay convention or whatever, but you get Stoops and Mac Brown. Obviously, I think Art Briles is starting to get that way. I don't know if he's probably more of a country star than a rock star, but I think people are beginning to realize the job he's doing at Baylor, and the fact that it's not a fluke, and that he does know how to, particularly offensively, and I think that program's starting to get a little swagger. I know they did bowl rings from the Holiday Bowl, and UCLA scored a touchdown at the end of the game that really shouldn't have been a touchdown. So the final score was 49-26. Well, on their rings, they said 49-19. They didn't count the touchdown on their rings. I kind of like that, saying, you know what, this is who we are, and I think that's kind of interesting that they are showing a little swagger.
And you can't leave Gary Patterson out of that.
Exactly, yes. And Gary Patterson, the job he's done at TCU, I think you can, if you wanted to, you could almost say the reason TCU's in the Big 12 is because of Gary Patterson, because he got that program to a couple of BCS games, proved that they could play big boy football against anybody. And and Gary, again, he'd probably be more of a country, instead of a rock star. He does play a little guitar and do a little singing, but yeah, and you know what? And TCU is a team picked third that a lot of people, Joel Klatt from Fox Sports, who I respect greatly and who knows his football, he thinks TCU is the team that's going to win it. And they've got a great defense. They got 2 capable quarterbacks. So yeah, if they end up winning the Big 12 this year, I think you'll see Gary Patterson's profile get even bigger than it is now.
Go ahead and plug what's going on with Big 12 digital and all that you're doing.
Well, today on Big12Sports.com, and all this will be archived. If you missed somebody's press conference with any of the coaches or any of the player interviews, we're going to have it all broken down on Big12Sports.com. And then later on in the year, we do what we call a Skyriders Tour. I go around to every campus. We preview the season that's upcoming. And toward the end of August, middle of August, we'll start every day. We'll have a preview of each school leading up to the season. And once we get starting the season, we have daily reports. Last 2 years we call them the Big 12 Minute. This year they may be something else, a little bit longer, but we're kind of continuing to ramp stuff up. But if you go to Big12Sports.com or just look for Big 12 Sports Digital, all that stuff's out there.
Nice suit, by the way.
Well, thank you. Yeah, doesn't show up well on radio, but hey, it looks good.
Wendall Barnhouse from Big12.com and Big 12 Media and Big 12 Digital and all the other Big 12 platforms. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Good to see you. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much.